The old woman with the faded tote bag watched me count pennies for milk. She slid an unlimited gold card across and said, "From now on, you pay with your own voice." I thought I was saved, but that gold card was a key to a hidden will, a secret company, and a trap set for those who treated me like a walking ATM. They flew in demanding family obligation, not knowing she'd added a clause anyone who guilt-tripped me would be signing their own disinheritance. My name is Harper Rivera. I am 30 years old, and on this particular Tuesday morning in Grand Rapids, I was failing to buy milk. The cold of the 7 a.m. air clung to the glass doors of the neighborhood grocery, and I could feel the chill radiate onto my back as I stood in the checkout line. It was quiet. The only sounds the hum of the dairy coolers and the low, statistical drone of a baseball announcer talking about spring training prospects from a small, dusty radio behind the counter. I had the milk carton in one hand and a small loaf of bread in the other, in my palm. I was counting the change, a pile of quarters, dimes, and nickels, and finally, the dull copper pennies. I was rearranging them, counting again, as if the value might change through sheer force of will. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. It wasn't a text meant for me. It was a notification from the family group chat. I didn't need to look. I knew the energy. It was Tuesday, which meant my sister Tara was posting about her Monday night live stream. I could already picture the explosion of celebratory emojis from my parents and cousins. I pulled the phone out anyway, a familiar knot tightening in my stomach. Tara photo of 12 shipping boxes. Sold out again. "You guys are amazing, Mom. That's my girl. Just incredible, Dad. Knew you had it in you. Sweetie Aunt Linda. Tara, you are just a powerhouse." The thread continued, a cascade of praise for Tara's boutique, which specialized in imported silk scarves she sold via social media. They were always selling out, a manufactured urgency that fueled my family's admiration. My gaze drifted from the bright screen to the dull, metallic coins in my hand. I work at Viridian Orthotech. I design and consult on the clinical application of surgical implants. My work saves knees and hips. Last Friday, after a 6-month review process that had involved 3 presentations and a grueling panel interview, I had been promoted to senior clinical specialist. It came with a 15% raise and a full relocation package to the main RD office in Austin. It was real. It was tangible. It was the biggest accomplishment of my career. 3 days ago, I had typed my own news into that same group chat. Me. Exciting update. I got the promotion. I'll be moving to Austin in about 3 weeks to lead the new clinical team. The response was immediate and absolute. Little read receipts populated under the text. One by one, my mother, my father, Tara, my aunt, all seen, and then nothing. Complete silence. The void. My message just hung there, isolated and sterile, orphaned by the immediate flood of replies that followed 2 hours later when Tara posted a blurry photo of her kids spilling spaghetti. Now, in the grocery store. My phone buzzed again. Tara had added a new video message, thanking everyone, her voice high and breathless. "Harper, honey." I looked up. The cashier, a young woman with tired eyes and a name tag that read Sonia, was waiting. The conveyor belt was empty. I was next. "Sorry." I pushed the milk and bread forward. She scanned them. The total appeared in red digital numbers. I pushed my pile of change onto the small rubber mat. "I'm sorry. I just need to count this out." Sonia sighed, a small puff of air, and looked past me at the line that had formed. 2 construction workers holding energy drinks, a woman with a crying baby, and directly behind me, an older woman with a faded canvas tote bag. The man behind the old woman huffed, a wet, impatient sound. Seriously. My face burned. I could feel the heat rising in my neck. My fingers fumbled, the pennies scattering. I started sorting them into small stacks, my hands shaking slightly from the cold and the humiliation. As my fingers moved, the old woman behind me stepped just slightly closer. I could feel her presence, but she said nothing. She wasn't sighing. She was just watching. Not my face, my hands, She watched my fingers separate the copper from the silver with a quiet, unsettling stillness. The scene superimposed itself over last Sunday's family dinner. It was my turn to host. I had spent all of Saturday and Sunday morning cooking. I made brisket, roasted potatoes with rosemary and garlic, asparagus, and a salad with homemade vinaigrette. I even baked a cheesecake, which I hated doing. They arrived, and the house immediately filled with the noise of my sister's life. Her 2 children ran screaming through my quiet apartment, leaving sticky handprints on my walls, while Tara held court at the table, a silk scarf draped over her shoulder like a trophy. "We hit $2,000 in sales in 1 hour," she announced, and the table erupted. "That's my girl," my father boomed, raising his glass of water. "A real entrepreneur," my mother clapped her hands, her eyes shining. "Oh, Tara, that's just wonderful. We are so proud of you." I brought the heavy brisket to the table, the steam rising. "Harper, be a dear and cut this for the kids. Will you?" my mother said, not looking at me, her gaze fixed on Tara. "They won't eat the big pieces." "And Harper," my father added, pointing to a small puddle of water near the sink where my nephew had been playing. "Mop that up before someone slips." "Okay." I spent the next hour shuttling plates, refilling drinks, and cutting food into bite-sized pieces for my nephews. I sat down to eat my own lukewarm portion just as Tara was explaining her new marketing strategy. Not one person, not my mother, not my father asked about my final presentation at Viridian. Not one person asked how my week had been. I was the chef, the waitress, and the janitor. I was the infrastructure that allowed the celebration of others to happen. "Ma'am." The cashier's voice snapped me back to the present. I had finished counting. I looked at the pile, then at the red numbers on the register. I was short. My stomach dropped. I counted again. Desperately. I swallowed. "I seem to be short. How much?" "You're 23 cents short," she said, her voice flat, devoid of sympathy. She glanced at the line behind me. "You gotta put something back. Honey, put something back. The milk or the bread." I would have to choose between breakfast and coffee. The humiliation was so complete, so sharp, it felt like swallowing glass. Just let me check my pocket again," I stammered, knowing it was empty, and then a hand entered my peripheral vision. It was the old woman from behind me. Her hand was thin, pale, and marked with veins, but her grip was steady. She wasn't handing me a quarter. She slid a gold card across the counter. The card was heavy. It wasn't the bright, tacky gold of a new money credit card. It was a deep, brushed matte gold, with no name on the front, just a simple, stylized logo of a linden tree. "Ring her up," the woman said. Her voice was low and clear, surprisingly strong. It cut through the hum of the coolers and the baseball announcer's drone. I turned, flustered. "Oh, no, please, I can't. I'm just short. It's only 23 cents. I can put the bread back." "Nonsense," she said. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at the cashier. Add whatever else she was looking at. Sonia, the cashier, looked from the card to the woman, her eyes wide, and then back to me. She tentatively picked up the card, clearly recognizing its weight. "Please, I really can't accept this," I insisted, trying to push the card back toward her. The old woman finally turned her gaze to me. Her eyes were a sharp, intelligent gray. She wasn't smiling, exactly, but her expression was not unkind. It was assessing. "It is unlimited," she said, tapping one long finger on the counter. "But the limits, my dear, are the ones you set for yourself." Her words hung in the air, nonsensical and profound all at once. Before I could protest again, she had nodded to Sonia. "Please." The line. Sonia, galvanized, swiped the card. The machine beeped. Approved. The receipt spooled out, long and white. Sonia handed the card back to the woman, who slipped it into a simple leather wallet inside her faded tote. "Thank you," I said, my voice barely a whisper. I was gathering my bag, the plastic crinkling in my trembling hands. That was incredibly kind. How can I don't even know your name. One moment, the woman said. She asked Sonia for a pen and the voided slip from my earlier failed transaction. She turned the slip over to the blank side. Your name? She asked me. Harper. Harper Rivera. She nodded, as if confirming something she already knew. She wrote my name down on the back of the receipt, her handwriting a strong, elegant cursive. She looked at it for a moment, then folded the slip and put it in her own pocket. I started, unsure what to say. The woman was already turning. She looked back at me one last time. You look like someone who keeps their appointments. She placed a small, thick card on the counter next to my bread. It was heavy cardstock, embossed with the same linden tree logo. When I looked down to pick it up, and then looked back up, she was gone. The door was already swinging shut, the small bell above it ringing a cheerful metallic chime. I stood there for a moment, the bag heavy in my hand. The man behind me cleared his throat, and I moved, jolted back into motion. I walked out into the cold Grand Rapids morning. The air felt different, sharper. I looked at the card she had left. It held only 3 lines of text: Cedar Steam, an address downtown, and 2 words, tomorrow. The chime of the grocery store bell echoed in my head. It felt like the closing of one thing, and the sharp, sudden strike of a match. I drove home from the grocery store, the small plastic bag sitting on the passenger seat. It felt fragile, weighted not by the milk and bread, but by the bizarre, heavy kindness of a stranger. My apartment was exactly as I had left it, clean, silent, and empty. I liked the order, but today the silence felt less like peace and more like an absence. I ran my finger along the top of the television, and it came away clean. I was meticulous, yet I felt a layer of dust on everything. It was the dust of invisibility, a fine gray film that settled on my life, my accomplishments, my very presence. No matter how hard I scrubbed, I was coated in it. This was the life I had built, being the reliable one, the one who always showed up, always said yes, always put her own needs aside. My life was a series of supporting roles for my sister, Tara. I remembered Christmas, 3 years ago. Tara had just launched her scarf boutique and was, as always, completely swamped. I spent 40 hours of my own paid vacation time in her freezing garage, packing boxes, printing shipping labels, and managing her inventory spreadsheet. My reward was a cold slice of pizza and a "You're a lifesaver" harp as she raced out to get a manicure. I remembered my canceled trip to Chicago. I had saved for months, a long weekend, just for me. A museum exhibit, a deep dish pizza, a hotel room I didn't have to share. 24 hours before I was set to leave, the call came. Tara's babysitter was sick. I can't miss this trade show. Harper, it's critical. The kids are asking for you. Please. My mother echoed the plea. Tara has children. Harper, her responsibilities are different. You can go to Chicago anytime. I never went to Chicago. The non-refundable hotel deposit vanished, and I spent my long weekend wiping juice spills and mediating a shrieking debate over a blue crayon. That was the unbreakable logic. Tara has children. It was the conversation ender, the ultimate justification that rendered any of my own plans, deadlines, or desires petty and selfish. My career at Viridian Orthotech was just a job. Tara's scarf side hustle was a dream, a calling that the entire family was conscripted to support. I sat on my sofa, the chill of the morning still in my bones. I looked at the family group chat on my phone. My promotion announcement from 3 days ago was long buried, pushed off the screen by the flood of adulation for Tara's sold-out live stream. They had all seen it. They had all moved on. I felt a sudden, stubborn need to try again, to give them one more chance to see me. My fingers moved over the screen. This wasn't just news. It was a physical fact, a deadline. Me. Just finalized the details with human resources. My official transfer date and start in Austin is the 15th. I sent it. I watched the little read icons pop up, one by one. Mom, Dad, Tara, silence. The message hung there, stark and blue, in the digital void. I waited. 10 minutes. 30. An hour. I went into the kitchen and put the milk away. I made a cup of coffee. My phone buzzed. My stomach did a stupid, hopeful little flip. I rushed back to the sofa. It was a new message from my mother, sent to the group. It was a photograph of my nephew, his face completely covered in chocolate cake frosting. The caption, "Uh-oh. Somebody found the dessert." I stared at the screen. My message about my career, my move, my life, was directly above her photo. She had seen it, processed it, and posted over it, as if it were conversational static, as if I had commented on the weather. I hadn't just been ignored, I had been erased. That night, I couldn't sleep. The boxes I had started to pack seemed to mock me from the corner of the room. I felt unreal, like a ghost in my own apartment. I opened my laptop and logged into my work email. I needed proof that I was a person. I found the offer letter, the official PDF from Viridian Orthotech. I read it again and again. Dear Ms. Rivera, following your exemplary performance, we are pleased to confirm your promotion to Senior Clinical Specialist, a 15% salary increase, full relocation bonus, and temporary housing. The words were solid, corporate, tangible. This was real. I printed the letter. I folded the heavy paper and put it in my wallet, alongside the strange, embossed card from the old woman. One was proof of my existence. The other was a mystery I didn't have time to solve. My phone lit up on the nightstand. A private message. My mother. My heart hammered. This is it. This is the private apology. I saw your text. I'm so proud. Let's talk about it. I opened the message. Harper, I need you to be here on Saturday. Your sister has a very important vendor event, and your father and I will be helping her at the booth. We need you to watch the kids from 9 a.m. until dinner. I read it once, then twice. It wasn't a question. It was an assignment. It was a summons. She wasn't just ignoring my move. She was actively deleting it from reality because it conflicted with Tara's schedule. My life-altering relocation was just an administrative hassle. My fingers, which had been shaking in the grocery store, were now perfectly still. All the humiliation, all the years of being erased, all the swallowed protests, coalesced into a single, cold point of clarity. I typed one sentence back. I am leaving for Austin today. I hit send. I didn't wait for the reply. I stood up and moved through my apartment with a sudden, violent efficiency. I didn't pack. I grabbed my laptop bag, my wallet, and the duffel I kept for weekend trips. I threw in whatever clothes were in my drawers, the rest of it the furniture, the books, the dust I left behind. At 5:30 in the morning, I walked out of my apartment, dropped my keys in the building manager's mail slot, and got in my car. I drove south on US 131 as the sky turned from black to gray. I didn't stop for coffee. I didn't turn on the radio. I just drove. I crossed the state line into Indiana. The highway was flat, the fields brown and frozen. I passed Indianapolis in a blur of morning traffic. I crossed into Illinois. The endless stretch of asphalt felt like a lifeline, pulling me away. The memory of the grocery store, of my fumbling hands, and the 23 cents I didn't have, kept replaying. It wasn't a humiliation anymore. It was a milestone. It was the last time. I had been on the road for 7 hours. I was somewhere south of Effingham when my phone, silent until now, lit up. It was my mother. What do you mean you're leaving for Austin today? What about Saturday? Call me. I looked at the message, at the two frantic questions. Not, are you safe? Not why? Not congratulations. Just, what about Saturday? I pressed the button on the side of the phone and watched the screen go dark. I did not reply. That night, I stopped at a roadside motel. The room was beige and smelled of stale cigarettes and bleach. I sat on the edge of the stiff bedspread and pulled the contents from my wallet, my driver's license, the printed offer letter, and the heavy card from the old woman. Cedar Steam. An address. Apt 204. Knock 3 times. I had been supposed to go tomorrow. I had missed the appointment. I had run. I looked at the address. It was just a street name and number. No city, no state. It was useless. I almost threw it away. But the embossed linden tree seemed to hold a strange weight. I put it back in my wallet. It took me 2 more days of driving to reach Austin. I used my relocation bonus to check into an extended stay hotel. My mind numb. My entire life reduced to what I could carry in my car. The next morning, I woke up to the strange, bright Texas sunlight. I had a week before I had to report to the Viridian office. I was adrift. I unpacked my small bag and found the card again. I looked at the address, on a whim. I typed it into my phone's map. It existed, 10 minutes away from my hotel. My skin prickled. There was no way. It was impossible. She was in Grand Rapids. It must have been a coincidence, a chain, but I had nothing else to do. I was a ghost in a new city. Half an hour later, I was standing outside a beautiful old brick building in a quiet neighborhood. A small, tasteful sign hung above a dark green door. Cedar Steam. It was a coffee shop. It was exactly as the card had said. I went inside. The smell of coffee and old wood was comforting. A young barista smiled at me. "Hi, I'm looking for apartment 204, I asked, feeling foolish. "Oh, right upstairs," he said, pointing to a narrow staircase in the back. "That's Mrs. March's place. Just go on up, Mrs. March, not the old woman from the store." My heart was beating quickly. I walked up the worn wooden stairs. At the top was a small landing and a single, heavy oak door marked 204. To the left, hanging on the wall, was a faded poster in a simple black frame. It was an old photograph of a clinic, dated 1975. Below the photo, text read, "The March Foundation Building a Healthier Community. Apply for the March Community Healthcare Scholarship." My blood went cold. The March Foundation. They were a major philanthropic partner for Viridian Orthotech. They had funded the very project I had been promoted to lead. This was not a coincidence. This was not charity for 23 cents. This was a summons. My mind raced. Who was she? How did she know I worked for Viridian? How did she know I'd be at that specific grocery store in Grand Rapids? I stared at the door. I thought about turning and running, but I had run all the way from Michigan. I was done running. I raised my hand. I knocked 3 times. The sound of my 3 knocks was heavy and final. Absorbed by the thick oak of the door, I waited, my breath catching in my throat. I heard the distinct sound of a deadbolt sliding back. A well-oiled, heavy mechanism. The door swung open. It was her, the old woman from the grocery store. She was not the stooped, anonymous figure from the checkout line. Here, in her own space, she seemed taller. Her silver-white hair was pulled back from her face in a neat twist, and she wore a thick, hand-knitted cardigan of a deep teal blue. Her eyes were exactly as I remembered, sharp, intelligent gray, and utterly unnerving. They scanned me from head to toe. "You're late," she said. It was not an accusation, just a statement of fact. I'm Harper Rivera," I said, my voice thin. "From the store, in Grand Rapids. How did you get here?" "I flew," she said, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. "You drove? You missed your appointment yesterday. I assumed you would find your way here eventually." She stepped back, holding the door wide. "I'm Evelyn March. Please, come in." I stepped over the threshold and into a space that immediately enveloped me. It was the antithesis of my empty, sterile apartment. The room was filled with the warm glow of polished wood. Bookshelves lined every wall, crammed with books that were clearly read, not just displayed. It smelled of the coffee from the shop downstairs, but also of beeswax, old paper, and lemon oil. The walls were covered in framed photographs, but they weren't family portraits. They were black and white images of construction sites, ribbon-cutting ceremonies, and groups of nurses standing in front of low, modest buildings. I recognized the architecture from the poster on the landing. They were clinics, community hospitals, dated from the 1960s and 1970s. Tea, she asked, already moving toward a small, immaculate kitchen area. Yes, please. I sat in a deep, worn leather armchair. She returned moments later with a simple wooden tray holding 2 steaming mugs and a small plate of biscuits. She placed it on the heavy wooden coffee table between us. I watched you in the store, she said. She didn't sip her tea. She just watched me. I watched you count those pennies. You did it with such precision, such meticulous care, as if organizing the chaos of the coins might somehow change their value. She leaned forward slightly. It told me 2 things about you. Harper Rivera. First, that you are a person who pays attention to detail. Second, that you are tragically accustomed to being shortchanged. The same heat of humiliation from the grocery line crept up my neck. I don't normally, I just miscalculated my withdrawal. Do not apologize to me for your circumstances, she cut in, her voice suddenly sharp. It wasn't angry, but it was absolute. You will only apologize for the circumstances you willingly accept. She reached into the pocket of her teal cardigan and pulled out the gold card, the same one. She placed it on the table between us. It made a solid, definitive sound against the wood. This, she said, is yours? I looked at it. It was matte gold, heavy. The embossed linden tree of the Linden Mutual Bank was in the corner, and then I saw the small, neatly printed label affixed to the back, authorized user H. Rivera, my name. She had asked my name. She had written it on the back of a voided receipt. She had had this card made for me. This was not an impulse. This was a plan. I don't understand, I whispered. I can't accept this. I don't know what this is. It is a tool, Evelyn said, pushing it an inch closer to me. It is not money in the way you understand it. It is not a gift. It is an asset, and it comes with very specific terms. She steepled her fingers, her gray eyes locking onto mine. This card is linked to a private trust. You will use it for your real needs, a secure place to live, education. Should you choose to pursue more, therapy, which I highly recommend, proper food, reliable transportation, the tools of your self-sufficiency, she paused, and her expression hardened, becoming almost severe. Now, here is what it is not for. It is not for rescuing other capable adults from the consequences of their own poor decisions. It is not for buying their affection. It is not for paying a guilt tax. It is not, Ms. Rivera, for bailing out a failing silk scarf boutique. My blood ran cold. How could you possibly know that if you violate the terms, she continued, ignoring my question, if you use this card to enable the very people who have been disabling you, the account will lock, instantly. I stared at the piece of plastic. It was a lifeline and a trap. However, she continued, a strange, calculating light entering her eyes. It has another function, a defensive one. If you are ever pressured, if you are cornered, if they come to you demanding and crying and emotionally blackmailing you, I want you to use this card. I looked up, confused. Use it to pay them. No, use it to buy their silence. Use it to pay for the coffee while they make their demands. Use it to book their flight home when they refuse to leave. Pay for the very thing that facilitates their manipulation, because every single transaction creates a record. The receipt, Harper, will speak for you. The itemized statement will be the evidence of their coercion. She sat back, satisfied, and finally took a sip of her tea. Tell me, she said, her voice softening just a fraction. How many times in the last year have you paid for something, a meal, a vacation, a bill for your family, and not one single person at that table bothered to ask you, Harper, are you okay? Do you need anything? The question was so precise, so pointed, that it broke something deep inside me. But it wasn't a dam of tears. It was a dam of data. I didn't cry. I didn't raise my voice. I just listed. I spoke for nearly 10 minutes. I listed the Christmases I spent packing Tara's boxes in a cold garage. I listed the canceled Chicago trip and the non-refundable deposit. I listed the Sunday dinners I cooked that went unchinked. I listed the sold-out scarves and the mythical $2,000 in sales. I listed my promotion, the 15% raise, the relocation to Austin, and then I listed the silence, the read receipts, the photo of my nephew covered in cake, the final, damning summons to babysit on Saturday, as if my entire move, my entire career, was just an inconvenient fiction they could override. I laid the facts out on the table, just as I had laid out the pennies. Evelyn March listened without interruption. She just nodded, as if I were a junior analyst confirming figures she had already projected. When I finished, the silence in the room was absolute, broken only by the ticking of a grandfather clock in the corner. "Good," she said, as if I had passed an exam. "You are an excellent clinical specialist. You see the pathology clearly." She reached down to a leather satchel by her chair and lifted a thick manila envelope. She placed it on the table next to the gold card. "I had these drawn up for you last week," she said. My fingers trembled as I opened the unsealed flap. The first document was an airline ticket, a one-way flight from Grand Rapids to Austin, dated for yesterday. She had known I needed to leave. I had beaten her timeline by driving myself. But the intent, the provision, was there. The second document was a lease agreement. I read the terms. A 1-month, fully prepaid lease for a furnished condominium near the Viridian Orthotech South Congress campus. The tenant was listed as Harper Rivera. The lessor was March Foundation Properties. My head snapped up. "The March Foundation, the poster downstairs. You? You're—" "I am the honorary chairwoman," Evelyn said simply. "My grandfather started the foundation. We build community hospitals, and we invest in the talent that runs them." The pieces clicked together with a terrifying sudden speed. "You funded my project," I said, my voice hollow. "The V-Orbit knee system, the March Foundation grant 5 years ago, that was you. You funded Viridian." "It was," she confirmed, her gaze unwavering. "We track our investments, Ms. Rivera, both the technology and the people. Your name has been on our internal reports for several years. You are meticulous. You are effective. And according to the associates I had inquire in Grand Rapids, you are pathologically undervalued." This wasn't a kind stranger. This wasn't charity. This was an acquisition. She hadn't stumbled upon me in that grocery store. She had been waiting for me. "I am not giving you charity," Evelyn said, her voice firm, pulling me from my shock. "I am making an investment. You have already proven you can build a career. I am providing the capital for you to build a spine." She gestured to the card. "Your family will not like your new success. They will come for it. They will see your new life in Austin not as your achievement, but as their new resource. When they do, I want you to be prepared." She leaned in, her voice dropping to a low, strategic hum. "Let them come. Let them ask. Let them demand. And let them reveal exactly who they are in the bright, unforgiving light of that gold card." I picked up the card. It was cool and heavy in my palm. I looked at my name. H. Rivera. I had spent my entire adult life trying not to be a burden, trying not to owe anyone anything, and this felt like the biggest debt of all. "I don't know if I can," I said, and my voice finally shook. "To be indebted to you like this, it's too much." Evelyn March actually smiled. It was a small, dry smile that just touched the corners of her eyes. "Oh, child," she said, sounding almost amused. "You misunderstand the terms of the debt. The only debt you owe is the one to yourself, the one you have been neglecting for 30 years. Your only obligation is to stop oppressing yourself. The rest is just paperwork." She stood, and I stood with her. She walked to a shelf and picked up a small, old-fashioned Polaroid camera. "One more thing. For my files." She aimed the camera at me. I stood awkwardly by the leather chair, trying to compose myself. The flash popped. momentarily blinding me. A small white square emerged from the camera with a mechanical whir. She waved it gently in the air. As the image slowly resolved me, standing in that warm, safe room, looking startled and uncertain, and for the first time in memory, seen, she took a pen from her desk. She wrote something on the white border at the bottom and handed it to me. H. Rivera, investment initiated. She then took a second picture, this time of both of us, side by side. A strange, new partnership, a bond had been formed, not of blood, but of a shared balance sheet. I walked out of that apartment with a prepaid lease, a gold card, authorized with my own name, and the terrifying, exhilarating knowledge that I was no longer invisible. I was an asset, and I was about to be audited. I moved into the condominium provided by the March Foundation that same afternoon. It was on the 4th floor of a sleek, modern building, and the unit was wrapped in glass. My old apartment in Grand Rapids had faced a brick wall and a dumpster. This one had a floor-to-ceiling window in the living room and a small, dedicated desk that looked out over the Anne and Roy Butler Trail. I watched a constant, vibrant stream of people running, cycling, and walking their dogs along the river. It was a view of life in relentless, healthy motion. The furniture was minimalist but expensive. A low-profile sofa, a solid wood dining table, a real bed with a high-quality mattress. It felt less like a home and more like a high-end corporate retreat, a place designed for focus and quiet strength. It was perfect. My first day at the Viridian Orthotech South Congress office was a blur of introductions, new badges, and systems training. The energy here was nothing like the Grand Rapids branch. It was faster, brighter, younger, and fueled by a competitive thrum that I found exhilarating. There was no time for petty office gossip. Everyone was too busy trying to innovate. On my third day, I led my first product demonstration. I stood in the primary presentation lab, a cool, dark room that felt like a small auditorium. My audience was a mix of orthopedic surgeons from Seton, physical therapists, and our own RD team, my baby. The V-Orbit knee recovery device sat on a pedestal under a single spotlight. The current model for post-op recovery is passive and reactive, I began, my voice steady, amplified just slightly by the lapel mic. I clicked to my first slide, a complex data visualization. The V-Orbit system is predictive. It doesn't just track flexion and extension. It uses subtle biofeedback to measure muscle fatigue at a micro level, adjusting resistance before the patient experiences pain or inflammation. This optimizes the healing curve, cutting standard recovery times by an estimated 20%. I moved with a confidence that felt new, or perhaps just unearthed. I handled the polished titanium and medical-grade silicone of the device with an expert's familiarity. This was my territory. I was fluent, precise, and answering complex questions about load-bearing tolerances and data encryption before the surgeons even finished asking them. After the successful demo, my new manager, Jonas, clapped me on the shoulder as the surgeons mingled. He was a sharp, fast-talking guy with a dry sense of humor. "Fantastic work, Rivera. That was clean, confident, and you handled that challenge from Dr. Miles without breaking a sweat. I heard you transferred from the GR branch. They must have been sad to lose you." He paused, looking at some notes. "I also heard you were basically the family server back home, always running logistics for everyone," the casual remark, probably gleaned from some off-the-cuff comment I'd made during my transfer interview, hit a nerve. The old Harper would have given an awkward, self-deprecating laugh. "Oh, families, right? Someone has to do it." The new Harper, the one who was an investment, just smiled lightly. "I was, but I've been unplugged. The hardware was needed elsewhere." Jonas laughed, a genuine bark of appreciation. "Good. We need your full processing power here. Welcome to Austin." I walked out of that lab feeling 2 inches taller. I didn't have a dog, but the apartment was profoundly, deeply quiet in the evenings. The family group chat had remained utterly silent since my mother's frantic, "What about Saturday?" message. No one had tried to call my phone. No one had texted again. It was a silence that felt heavy and tactical, a strategic withholding of contact, a punishment. They were waiting for me to break, to apologize for the inconvenience of my own life, to beg for re-entry. I refused, but the silence was lonely, to escape the quiet. I started walking the trail I saw from my window. On Saturday morning, I was sitting on a bench near the Zilker Dog Park, sipping coffee, when a blur of brown and white shot past me, trailing a long leash, and began sniffing insistently at my bag. "Rocket heel, dang it, man, leave her alone," a man's voice called out, a whirlwind of a beagle, vibrating with uncontrolled joy, ignored the command completely and tried to climb into my lap, convinced I was hiding treats. "Rocket, down, I am so sorry," the man said, jogging up. He was tall, dressed in running gear, with an open, easy smile that was not diminished by his exasperation. "He has zero boundaries and terrible recall. It's a bad combination in a beagle." "It's okay," I laughed, scratching the beagle's velvety ears. "He's Rocket, named for his speed, not his intelligence," the man said, offering a hand. "I'm Miles Carter. Harper Rivera." We shook. His grip was warm and firm. "You new here. You have that, just arrived, still acclimating to the humidity look. That obvious," I said. "I just transferred for work. I'm at Viridian Orthotech, over on South Congress." Miles's eyes lit up. "No kidding, I'm Miles, founder of Stride Leaf Rehab. We're a small startup, mostly software, trying to gamify post-operative physical therapy." "You're kidding me. I literally just demoed the V-Orbit knee system on Wednesday." We talked for almost an hour. It was effortless. We didn't do the usual small talk about where we were from or our relationship statuses. We talked about the challenges of patient compliance, the data gap between in-clinic visits, and the true return on investment for preventative health measures. It was the first conversation I'd had in years that felt like a true exchange between equals, not a transaction I was expected to fulfill. He eventually managed to pull Rocket away, but not before getting my number to talk shop again. That night, my new apartment felt peaceful. I had made a new, real connection. My work was valued. The silence from my family felt less like a punishment and more like a reprieve. I was, for the first time, just, okay. The peace lasted exactly 2 days. My younger cousin, Amber, was on a cross-country road trip and texted me that she was passing through Austin. Amber was generally harmless, a bit of a social media addict, but not malicious like Tara. I liked her, and I was proud of my new place. I told her she was welcome to crash on my very comfortable new sofa. She arrived that night, gushing over the apartment. "Oh my God, Harp, this view, this is insane. You are living the life." She immediately pulled out her phone and started taking pictures. "It's nice, right?" I said, handing her a bottle of water. "Is this okay?" she asked, already framing a shot of the living room. "Just for my story, I won't tag the building." "Sure, Amber, go for it." An hour later, my phone began to vibrate itself off the kitchen counter. Amber, true to her word, hadn't tagged the location, but she had posted a dozen Instagram stories. My living room, my floor-to-ceiling window with the sunset view, my sleek kitchen, and the caption, "Staying with my amazing cousin Harper Rivera in her new Austin digs. She is absolutely killing it." The comments from extended family, people I hadn't heard from in years, started pouring into Amber's post. "Wow, Harper. Looks incredible. Way to go, Harp. So fancy." Then, the landmine. A comment from my mother, posted publicly for all to see. "We are so proud of our little girl, so glad she's all settled in and doing so well. Our little girl," as if she had helped pack my bags, as if she had proofread my presentations, as if she hadn't completely ignored the announcement of the very promotion that got me here. She was claiming my success, retroactively stamping her maternal approval on it now that it was public, validated, and impressive. My blood ran hot. A second later, a private message buzzed on my phone. It wasn't in the main group chat. It was a forwarded message. I stared at the screen, confused. It was from Tara, to my mother, which my mother had then forwarded to me, Tara's text to Mom. That place looks expensive. Like, really expensive. You need to ask her what her new salary is. Find out what the relocation bonus was. Did she buy it? Ask her about the mortgage. We need to know what she's dealing with. My hands were shaking. It was so brazen. So clinical. I wasn't a daughter or a sister. I was a financial asset to be assessed. My mother had forwarded this financial interrogation to me, the target, with a single, chillingly oblivious addition. Harper, honey, Tara is just worried about you. We all are. It seems like a lot for you to handle all by yourself. Call me. Worried. That was the code. Worried I was making money they couldn't access. Worried that I was building a life that didn't revolve around them. I was supposed to meet Miles for coffee. I almost canceled. My stomach in knots. But I needed to be around someone sane. I went, and I told him. I just laid it out. The public comment from my mom. The forwarded text from Tara. He listened patiently, sipping his espresso. He didn't tell me I was overreacting. He didn't tell me, but it's family, they mean well. He just set his cup down and said, "Wow, that's efficient of them. They're probing for weaknesses in the new structure." I don't know what to do, I admitted, my voice small. They'll come here, I know they will, and they'll pick it apart, or ask me for money, or both. Miles looked at me, his gaze very direct. Then you don't let them. It's your house. Harper, your castle. You don't need to explain your salary, your mortgage, or your furniture. You just need rules. In my startup, we call it setting the terms of engagement. No explanations, just rules, non-negotiable. It was like a light bulb turning on. Evelyn's words echoed in my head. I am making an investment. I am investing in boundaries. I went home that afternoon. I found a small, elegant piece of cardstock that had come with a stationery set. I took out my best pen and, in my clearest handwriting, I wrote, House Rules 1. This is my home and a quiet space. Please use inside voices and help me keep it tidy. Running and shouting are for outside. 2. The art and collectibles are fragile. Please enjoy them with your eyes, not your hands. 3. My work and finances are private. Just as your finances are private, we will not be discussing salary, bonuses, or rent. Thank you for respecting this. I didn't stick it on the door like a college dorm. I placed the card in a small, minimalist silver frame and set it on the entryway console table, right where they would put their keys. It was a polite, beautiful, and non-negotiable fact. I didn't have to wait long. The email arrived the next morning. It was from my mother. The subject line was just, "Surprise. Harper, honey, we miss you so much and we are so worried about you all alone in that big city. Tara found an amazing deal on flights, so we are all coming to see you. We land this Friday at 4 p.m. We can't wait to see your new place and have a real family weekend. Love, Mom, Dad, Tara and the kids, of course." My stomach didn't drop. My heart didn't pound. I just felt cold, calm. This wasn't a visit. It was an audit. They were coming to assess the new asset. They had booked tickets without asking. They were telling me, not inviting themselves. I picked up my wallet and pulled out the matte gold card. I ran my thumb over the embossed linden tree. I remembered Evelyn's voice, as clear as if she were in the room. Let them come. Let them reveal exactly who they are in the bright, unforgiving light of that gold card. I picked up my phone. I sent a text message to Evelyn March. Me. They're coming. This Friday. The reply was almost instantaneous. It was a simple, digital icon of a red heart, followed by 5 words. Evelyn. You know what to do? I did. I went into my new kitchen. I checked my supply of good tea. I made sure the framed House Rules was centered perfectly on the table by the door. I went to my desk, sat down, and looked out at the runners on the trail. I was calm. I was prepared. The match had been struck, and the fuse was now burning. The doorbell rang at exactly 12:15 on Saturday. I didn't jump. I had been expecting it. I finished wiping down the kitchen counter, took a slow, deliberate breath, and counted to 10 before walking to the entryway. I checked the small, framed house rules on the console table, ensuring it was straight. Then, I opened the door. "Harper, baby." My mother surged forward, pulling me into a tight, papery hug that smelled of hairspray and the recycled air of an airplane. "Oh, look at you. Just look at this place. It's incredible. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. Tara. Welcome." My father grunted a hello, brushing past both of us, his eyes already scanning the living room. "Big TV. That's good. Where's the remote for this thing?" He spotted it and immediately settled into the best armchair, clicking the television on. Tara followed last, pushing her two children, ages 5 and 7, ahead of her as she drifted into the room. She held her phone in her hand, not filming, but assessing. Her eyes moved from the light fixtures to the hardwood floors to the wall of windows, cataloging every item, calculating its cost. "Wow, Harp," she said, her voice dripping with a saccharine appraisal. "You really landed on your feet." The compliment felt like an invoice. "Run. Kids, go find your room," Tara commanded, giving her sons a push. The boys, delighted by the new, clean space, took off screaming toward my bedroom and the office, their shoes squeaking on the polished floor. "Ah," I said. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't move quickly. I just stepped into the hallway, blocking their path. "Hello, guys. Welcome to my home." The boys skidded to a stop, looking up at me with surprise. In their house, no one blocked their path. I bent down slightly, not to their level, but enough to meet their eyes. "We have a new rule in this house. This is a quiet house. We don't run, and we don't shout. We use our inside voices." I turned to the small stack of books I'd placed on the console table, right next to the framed rules. I had bought them that morning, beautiful. Hardcover picture books about dinosaurs and outer space. "In this house, we sit and read. You can each pick one." The 5-year-old, fascinated by the T-Rex on the cover, grabbed the dinosaur book. The 7-year-old just stared at me, defiant. "Aunt Harper, what is this?" he whined, looking to his mother for backup. Tara's smile was thin and brittle. "Harper, don't be dramatic. They're just kids. They've been cooped up. They need to burn off energy." "And they can," I said, my voice pleasant and firm. "We can all go to the park later, but in here, in my home, we sit and read." I pointed to the sofa, defeated by my absolute lack of agitation, and with no immediate support from their mother. The boys retreated to the sofa. They slumped down and, with theatrical sighs, began to flip through the pages. Tara watched me. Her eyes narrowed. The first boundary had been tested, and it had held. "Tea?" I asked, moving to the kitchen. "I have a really nice oolong." "I'll just have a soda, honey," my mom said, running her hand along the quartz countertop, a gesture that was half caress, half appraisal. "This is just... I can't believe this is yours. Is this quartz? It must have cost a fortune." "No soda," I said, filling the electric kettle. "But I have sparkling water or tea." "Water is fine, dear." I prepared a tray, the good ceramic teapot, the 4 matching cups, a small plate of shortbread cookies. My hands were steady. I was not a hostess. Fumbling to please, I was a chairperson, opening a meeting. I set the tray on the coffee table. The stage was set. My father was flipping channels. The sound muted. My mother was examining my possessions, one by one. Tara sat across from me, her posture all business, her patience clearly gone. "So, Harp," Tara began, the casualness of it perfectly rehearsed. "This is a lot. This building is brand new. What's a place like this even run?" I smiled and poured the hot water over the oolong leaves, watching them unfurl in the glass pot. "It's a very fair market rate." "Right. But what is the rate?" she pushed, leaning forward. "I mean, Did you buy? The interest rates are insane right now. Did you get a good mortgage deal? You must have gotten a huge signing bonus for that. She didn't buy. Tara, don't be silly, my mother jumped in, a little too quickly. She's just renting, but still, honey, your father and we're worried. This seems like a lot of overhead for you to handle all by yourself. What is your new salary? Exactly. Did they really give you that full 15% raise you mentioned in your text? I looked up from the tea, letting my gaze drift from my mother, the good cop, to my sister, the bad cop. I smiled, a small, pleasant, utterly empty smile. I pushed a teacup toward my mother. Which question will help you sleep better tonight, Mom? My mother blinked, flustered. Tara's eyes hardened. My deflection wasn't just a dodge, it was a mirror, and she didn't like the reflection. The air in the room thickened. My father, sensing the shift, muted the television. The silence was sudden and heavy, filled only by the whisper of the air conditioning. My mother put her untouched teacup down. She sighed, a long theatrical exhalation of manufactured sorrow, a sound I had heard my entire life, usually right before a request. Harper, she began, her voice dropping into the low, serious tone she reserved for bad news or appeals for money. We have something very, very difficult to talk about. Here it was, the real reason for the surprise visit, the true purpose of the financial interview. Your sister, Tara's in a bit of trouble. Honey, Tara, on cue, looked down at her hands, her expression crumbling into one of practiced victimhood. Her shoulders slumped. It's the boutique, my mother continued, her voice trembling with just the right amount of emotion. It's just, this economy, it's so hard on small businesses. You know, she wasn't just sold out like she said. She was over-leveraged. I'm ruined. Harper, Tara whispered, her voice cracking perfectly. We took out a bridge loan last quarter to cover inventory for the spring line, and the supplier. They sent the wrong shipment. It's all defective, and now the balloon payment is due, at the end of the month. How much? I asked. My voice was flat, clinical, the voice of a specialist assessing a problem. $39,000, my mother said, the number landing on the table like a stone. And honey, your father and we wanted to help her, so we co-signed the note. I looked at my father. He was staring at the blank television screen, the picture of a beaten man. We're going to lose the house, Harper. My father finally spoke, his voice heavy with blame. They'll put a lien on it, everything we've worked for, gone, because we tried to help your sister. This was the play, the trap, my sister's irresponsibility, my parents' profound financial enablement, all tied up in a neat $39,000 bow and laid at my feet. It was my problem to solve. My father leaned forward, trying a different angle, his voice becoming conspiratorial. That young man you've been seeing, Miles, your mother saw his picture on your cousin's posts. He's got money, right? A startup. A man like that. He's going to want to take care of you. You two. You don't need two big, expensive places. It's a waste. You could move in with him. It just makes sense, financially. The audacity of it was breathtaking. They had seen Amber's posts. They had researched Miles. They were already spending his money, moving me out of my own home, all based on 2 coffee dates. Tara saw her opening and pounced, her ruined whisper replaced by a sharp, desperate urgency. Dad's right. Harper, this is what family is. We share the burden. We help each other. We need you to help. It's simple. She stood up and walked over to the window, gesturing at my new life, at the city below. You have all this condo. You can just transfer it, sell the lease, or whatever. We can get the cash from the equity, or you can just give us the money from your bonus. Her back was to me, but I could hear the demand beneath the plea. I sat there, I let the demands hang in the air. I let the silence stretch. I watched my mother look at me with pleading, desperate eyes. I watched my father, steeped in his performance of paternal shame. I watched Tara, who finally turned from the window, her expression no longer one of victimhood, but of sharp, hungry calculation. She believed she had me. She believed that family was the magic word, the key that unlocked my resources. I was the auditor, and I had just listened to their entire fraudulent report. Slowly, deliberately, I reached into my purse on the floor beside me. I pulled out my wallet. They all watched, their expressions hopeful. Was I getting my checkbook? A credit card? I pulled out the single, matte gold card. I placed it on the coffee table. It made a soft, heavy thud on the wood, between the untouched teacups. My family stared at it. It was unfamiliar. It was heavy. It looked expensive. "What's that?" Tara asked, her voice suspicious. "This," I said, my voice quiet but carrying through the room with absolute clarity, "is a card that pays only for my needs." I looked at my mother. I looked at my father. "It pays for my rent. It pays for my food. It pays for my education and my therapy. It does not pay for bad business loans." My mother's eyes, which had been watery with fake tears, now narrowed in genuine confusion and suspicion. "Who gave you that?" "What is that? Is that from Miles?" I shook my head, a small smile touching my lips for the first time that day. "No, it was a gift from someone else." I looked around the beautiful, quiet room, my new fortress. "It's from someone who believes that boundaries are worth funding." The words landed. The air in the room didn't just change. It solidified. It wasn't just me against them anymore. I had a backer. I had an infrastructure. The old familiar rules they thought they were playing by had just been incinerated. They could feel the new power in the room, and for the first time in their lives, they knew it wasn't theirs. Tara looked from the card to me, her face pale with a new kind of rage. This was not in her script. My father stood up, his face red. "What is that supposed to mean?" "Harper, after everything we've done for you." I held up a hand, not in anger, but in a simple, procedural stop. "I'm not saying no," I said. My voice was calm, measured. I looked at Tara. "And I'm not saying yes." I stood up, the meeting clearly over. "I need to review the situation. I will think about it." The stunned silence in the room was my answer. I had denied them the immediate, tearful capitulation and the dramatic, table-flipping fight they had prepared for. I had taken their urgent, 5-alarm fire and turned it into a line item for consideration. The confrontation hadn't ended. It had just paused, hanging in the air entirely on my terms. The battle had truly moved into its second phase, a war of emails and paperwork. They left my apartment 20 minutes later, the silence of their departure heavy and toxic. My "I will think about it" had been a dismissal, not a negotiation, and they knew it. They were a storm forced into a holding pattern, and I knew the turbulence was building. They checked into a hotel nearby, a fact my mother informed me of via a curt, guilt-laced text. "We are at the Holiday Inn. The children are very upset." I ignored it. I sat at my new desk, the one overlooking the river. The sun was setting, and the runners on the trail below were just silhouettes. I opened my laptop. I was no longer Harper the daughter, or Harper the sister. I was Harper Rivera, senior clinical specialist, and I was going to handle this situation the only way I knew how, as a critical review of a failing project. I opened a new document and titled it, Project Timeline Rivera Family Loan Request. I began to list the data points, my fingers flying across the keyboard with a cold, precise anger. Item 1, March 10th. Formal promotion to senior clinical specialist announced in family group chat. Read receipts confirmed by Tara Rivera. Mom's name Rivera. Dad's name Rivera. Total responses 0. Item 2. March 12th. Official relocation date April 15th, and Austin start confirmed in family group chat. Read receipts confirmed by all 3 parties. Total responses 0. followed 32 minutes later by mom's name, Rivera. Photo nephew eats cake. Item 3. March 15th. Text message summons from mom's name, Rivera. Subject, non-negotiable demand for babysitting services for March 19th. This date directly conflicts with documented and acknowledged relocation schedule. Item 4, March 17th. Unannounced arrival of family unit at Austin residence. Immediate financial interrogation regarding salary, bonus, and housing costs. Item 5, March 17th, 12:45 p.m. Formal request for financial bailout. Sum $39,000. Stated reason, failing boutique. Co-signed bank guarantee. Threat of lien on primary residence. I stared at the timeline. It was not a history of a loving family. It was a log of systematic exploitation. It was a data trail of neglect, followed by an opportunistic, high-stakes demand. Next, I opened a new browser tab and logged into the Linden Mutual portal. It was not a bank. It was a trust. The interface was stark, secure, and all business. I clicked on the terms conditions for the trust associated with my gold card. I didn't have to look hard. Clause 4B, prohibition on coercive transference. I read the legal language. Funds from the Aurora Trust are designated solely for the beneficiary's personal welfare, security, and advancement. Any transaction identified as resulting from emotional, financial, or familial coercion for the direct financial rescue of a non-beneficiary capable adult will be flagged as void. A pattern of such attempts may result in a temporary account lock to protect the beneficiary and the integrity of the trust. So Evelyn hadn't just given me a tool. She had given me a shield. The system itself was designed to enforce my no. My laptop chimed. An email. It was from Tara. The subject line was a declaration of war. What you are doing to this family. I opened it. It was a long, rambling, hysterical novel of pure, unfiltered manipulation. Harper, I am sitting in this disgusting hotel room watching Mom cry. She is sick with worry. She hasn't eaten. Dad hasn't slept. I cannot believe you would do this to us. After everything we have done for you. The one time we ask you for help. You sit there in your fancy glass tower and judge us. You think you are so much better than us now. Don't you? With your new job and your new city, do you have any idea what this means? If you don't do this, Mom and Dad will lose their house. The house you grew up in. It will be gone. All because you're too selfish to part with a bonus you probably didn't even earn. This is your one chance. Harper. This is your chance to prove that you are still a part of this family and not some cold-hearted snake. I've already sent you the photos of the bank guarantee. All you have to do is make the transfer. We are waiting. If you let this happen, you will be responsible for putting your own parents on the street. I hope you can sleep at night. It was all there. The guilt, the shaming, the minimizing of my success, the escalation of the threat, the manufactured moral deadline. I took a deep breath. The old Harper would have been shattered. She would have been crying, her stomach in knots, her mind racing to find a way to fix it, to make the yelling stop. The new Harper simply moved her cursor. I hit reply. I CC'd my mother and my father. My response was 3 sentences long. Subject what you are doing to this family. Tara, your documents have been received. I am reviewing the situation and the associated liabilities. We will meet tomorrow at 4 p.m. at Cedar Steam on 2nd Street to finalize my decision. I hit send. I closed the email client. The professional, sterile non-answer would be more infuriating to Tara than any argument. I had taken her emotional hand grenade and reclassified it as a pending agenda item. I picked up my phone and texted Evelyn March. Evelyn, they have escalated. As predicted, Tara is sending threats via email. I have scheduled a final meeting at Cedar Steam, tomorrow at 4 p.m. Would you be willing to be present, not at the table, just nearby, as an observer? The reply came back in less than a minute. I will be in the corner booth with a newspaper. Let them perform. Harper, the receipt will rewrite the script. My phone buzzed again almost immediately. It was Miles. Just checking in. His text read, "Survived the invasion." The simple, kind question almost broke my resolve. I texted back, "Barely. The visit was an audit. They want $39,000. He called me instantly. "Jesus. Harper, are you okay? My God. Do you want me to come over? Do you want me at that meeting? I can be there. I can just sit at the table and not say a word. Or I can be the bad guy and talk about legal ramifications. Just say the word." The generosity of his offer, the immediate leap to my defense, was so foreign and so powerful that it made my eyes well up. It was everything I had ever wanted from my father. My sister. "Thank you, Miles," I said, my voice thick for the first time that night. "That means more than you know. But no, this is my hardware. I have to be the one to unplug it." "I get it," he said, his voice warm. "Okay, but you call me the second it's over, and if you change your mind, I'm 30 minutes away. Tops." "Deal," I said, and hung up. Now, the work began. I went back to Tara's email. Attached, as she'd said, were blurry phone photos of the bank guarantee. I downloaded them, sharpened the images, and printed them in high resolution. I took out a red pen from my desk drawer. I circled the balloon payment clause. I circled the 18% default interest rate. I highlighted the joint and several liability clause, the one that meant the bank would go after the easiest target, my parents first. Tara hadn't just signed a bad loan. She had used my parents as human shields. Next, I went to the family group chat. I scrolled up and up, past the cake photo, past the silence, to my promotion announcement. I took a high-resolution screenshot. I scrolled to my relocation announcement. Screenshot. I saved them both to a file, went into a simple editor, and drew a clean, precise black box over the faces and names of my nephews. The children were innocent. They were not exhibits. This one act made me feel cleaner than I had in years. I printed the screenshots. Then, I went to the website for the Housing Trust of Texas. I spent 30 minutes researching. I was a good researcher. It was part of my job. I found what I was looking for, a legal advisory pamphlet. In the state of Texas, any attempt to force the sale of a primary residence valued at over $500,000 to cover a third-party co-signed debt in default is highly complex. Homeowners are strongly advised to seek independent legal counsel. I printed the advisory. Finally, I opened one more new document. This one was not a spreadsheet. It was a letter. To Mom's name, Dad's name, and Tara Rivera. From Harper Rivera, date March 18th, subject decision regarding financial request and future boundaries. This document outlines my final, non-negotiable decision regarding the $39,000 debt incurred by Tara Rivera. One, I will not be paying this debt. It is the direct result of a series of adult decisions, including a high-risk loan structure and a co-signed guarantee, which I was not party to. 2. My financial resources, including my salary, bonuses, and personal assets, are private and are not available for the servicing of this or any future debt. 3. I am willing to offer, as a one-time gesture of familial support, the following: A prepaid retainer for 5 hours with a qualified commercial bankruptcy consultant. B, enrollment and full payment for an 8-week online course in small business accounting and financial management. This offer is contingent on all parties ceasing any and all discussion of my personal finances and ceasing all coercive communication. Effective immediately. Signed, Harper Rivera, Senior Clinical Specialist. I printed the letter. I put all the documents, the marked-up loan guarantee, the damning screenshots, the housing advisory, and my final boundaries letter into a sleek, black portfolio folder from my Viridian Orthotech orientation kit. I put the gold card in my wallet, right in the front slot. It was not a safety net. It was a weapon. Every coffee, every pastry they ordered at that table tomorrow would be an itemized receipt. It would be an invoice for their own manipulation, time-stamped and recorded by the Linden Trust. I went through my new apartment, turning off the lights. I checked the lock on the front door. I went to my bedroom, and for the first time in my life before a family confrontation, I did not feel dread. I did not feel fear. I felt prepared. I got into bed and fell asleep almost instantly. My alarm woke me at 7:59 a.m. I had set it 1 minute early, just because I could. The Austin sunlight was clear and bright, cutting a sharp rectangle across the floor. The clock was counting down. I showered. I dressed. I did not choose armor, but I chose a uniform. Dark trousers, a silk shell, and a sharp structured blazer. I looked like the professional I was. I arrived at Cedar Steam at 3:30, 30 minutes early. I saw Evelyn in the back corner booth, exactly as she'd promised, mostly hidden behind a copy of the Wall Street Journal. She saw me. Her eyes met mine over the paper, and she gave a single, almost imperceptible nod. I didn't choose a comfortable, hidden booth. I chose a round table in the middle of the room, under a bright light. It was exposed. It was transparent. It was a table for a meeting, not a family chat. I sat down, placed my portfolio on the table, and ordered a black coffee. I sat facing the door, my back straight, my hands resting calmly on the table. I was not a daughter waiting to be scolded. I was a specialist, waiting for the clients to arrive for their final review. And I was ready. They arrived at precisely 4:02, a full 2 minutes late. Tara pushed through the coffee shop door first, her cheap trench coat swirling. Her face was not that of a desperate victim. It was a thundercloud of impatient rage. My father followed, his shoulders slumped, his eyes finding the floor, already defeated. My mother entered last, closing the door softly, her face pale and pinched. She looked like she had been crying for hours, a state I knew she could produce on command. She slid into the chair opposite me, her hands twisting nervously in her lap. "Harper," she began, her voice a practiced, watery whisper. "Oh, honey, I am so sorry about the silence. When you told us about your promotion, that was wrong. I was just so overwhelmed, and I'm so proud. Baby, I just—" "Mom, stop," Tara snapped, dropping into her chair with a heavy sigh. She didn't even look at me. "It doesn't matter. We are not here to apologize. We are here because this is an emergency." The word hung in the air, sharp and metallic. A barista, a young man with kind eyes and a sleeve of tattoos, came to the table. "Hi, folks. Welcome to Cedar Steam. Can I get you started with anything?" "Just water," Tara said, waving him away. I'll have a latte. Skim," my mother whispered, still in her fragile role. "Black coffee," my father mumbled to the table. Tara, whose emergency apparently did not preclude her from accepting free goods, changed her mind. "Actually, I'll have a large mocha and a croissant, warmed." "Excellent," I said, my voice clear and bright, cutting through their mumbled misery. I smiled at the barista. "So that's 1 skim latte, 1 black coffee, 1 large mocha, and 1 warmed croissant. Please put it all on 1 bill. I'll take it." The barista nodded and left. My family watched me, thrown off by my cheerful, competent demeanor. I was not supposed to be the one in control. "So," Tara began immediately, leaning her elbows on the polished wood. She was all business. "Have you come to your senses? Are you going to help us, or are you going to let your father and mother lose their home?" "I've thought about it a great deal," I said. I was not angry. I was not nervous. I was a consultant who had finished her analysis. I reached into the black Viridian portfolio I had placed beside me. I pulled out the first document. It was the single sheet of paper, my boundaries letter. I placed it in the center of the table and slid it toward her. "What is this?" she asked, her eyes narrowing, refusing to touch it. "That is my decision," I replied calmly. "I'm not going to give you the $39,000. You?" Tara started to rise, her face turning a blotchy red. "But I am willing to help," I continued, my voice cutting cleanly over her impending tantrum. "You have 3 options. First, I am willing to pay for a 5-hour retainer with a commercial bankruptcy consultant of your choosing. I want you to get professional advice on your next steps. Bankruptcy, Tara hissed, sitting back down, her face white. How dare you? Second, I continued, my voice unwavering, my gaze locked on hers. I will pay the full tuition for an 8-week online course in small business accounting and financial management from the State University. And third, I will commit to a scheduled, pre-arranged childcare calendar for 1 weekend a month, provided I am given 4 weeks' notice so I can plan my work. I will offer no cash. That is my final, non-negotiable decision. There was a moment of complete, stunned silence. Tara stared at the paper as if it were coated in acid. Then she let out a short, ugly bark of a laugh. A class? You're offering me a class. When we are about to lose our house, you're offering to babysit. What in God's name kind of help is that? It's the kind of help that addresses the actual problem, I said, my voice still level. You are bad with money, Tara. And the family has been enabling you. The problem, she leaned in, her voice a low, vicious growl, is $39,000. It's a number. Harper, a number. You can easily pay. Just write the check and stop playing this sick, twisted power game. It's not a game. I reached back into the portfolio. I pulled out the second set of documents. It was the stack of blurry photos she had emailed me, the bank guarantee. Only now, they were crisp, high-resolution printouts. I slid them across the table, right on top of my letter. My red ink circles glowed under the warm cafe lights. You signed this, Tara, I said. My voice was no longer pleasant. It was cold. You signed your name, and you had Mom and Dad sign their names, to a high-risk commercial loan with an 18% balloon clause. I read the fine print. Did you? You didn't do the math. You didn't plan for this contingency. This is not my emergency. This is the predictable and direct consequence of a choice you made. My mother let out a small, strangled gasp. My father, for the first time, actually looked at the paper. His eyes widened as he saw the interest rate that he had clearly never bothered to read. He looked from the paper to Tara, his expression suddenly ashen. Tara was speechless. She looked from the damning paper to my face, her expression vibrating with pure, unadulterated hatred. She had no argument. I had used her own evidence against her. The barista returned, expertly placing the drinks and the warmed croissant on the table. And here is that check for you, ma'am, he said, placing the small black tray in front of me. Thank you, I said, my voice bright and clear again. I opened my wallet. Tara's eyes tracked the movement, predatory and hungry. I pulled out the matte gold card. I placed it deliberately on the tray. It made a solid, definitive sound. The barista's eyes widened. He was a professional, but he couldn't help a flicker of surprise. He recognized the card type, its weight, its exclusivity. Oh, of course, ma'am, I will be right back. We have to run this one manually. He took the tray and hurried away, as if holding something precious. Tara's gaze was fixed on the space where the card had been. What was that? She asked, her voice changing entirely. The anger was gone, replaced by a sharp, sudden, avaricious curiosity. It's just a card, I said, picking up my own coffee. No, she said, shaking her head, her eyes suddenly bright. That was brushed gold. That looked like a Linden Mutual card, a private trust card. Who gave you that? The barista returned, placing the card and the receipt slip respectfully in front of me. I picked up the pen and signed Harper Rivera in a firm, clear hand. As I did, I glanced at the itemized slip. 4 drinks, 1 pastry, and at the bottom, the digital memo line printed by the trust's processor, invisible to my family but very visible to me and Evelyn. Payment reason, personal self-care meeting. Transaction category. Boundary enforcement. The evidence was now logged. The trap was set. Tara, leave her alone, my mother whispered. But her gaze was also glued to the card as I tucked it slowly and carefully back into my wallet. No, I want to know, Tara insisted, her voice getting louder, more demanding. Who is funding you? Harper, is it that Miles guy? Or was it that old woman from the condo? What's the limit on a card like that? Is it really unlimited? The mask of the desperate sister, the failed businesswoman, the victim, it had vanished completely. All that was left was the raw, gaping maw of greed. She saw a new, untapped resource. She was already calculating. I smiled. It was a real smile this time, thin and sharp as a scalpel. The limit, Tara, I said, is me. My mother, seeing the entire negotiation had not only failed, but spectacularly backfired, did what she always did. She deployed the tears, her face crumpled, and her shoulders began to heave. I just don't understand, she sobbed, her voice trembling with perfectly modulated sorrow. I don't know what we did wrong. We just wanted to be a family. It was a masterful performance, timed for maximum guilt, maximum impact. From the back corner booth, a sound, a sharp, distinct click of a ceramic teacup being placed firmly down on its ceramic saucer. We all turned. My family just saw an old, well-dressed woman, half hidden by a newspaper, sipping her tea. But I saw Evelyn. She was watching. She was observing. The sound was a punctuation mark. It was a bell tolling. It was a quiet reminder to me. Stay on script. Close the deal. Tara, rattled by the sound and my mother's performative sobbing, tried her last, desperate tactic. She fell back on the one thing she thought I couldn't possibly fight. You have a moral obligation. Harper, she snapped, her voice breaking with real frustration. At the very least, you have a moral obligation to keep your parents off the street. Morality is not a legally binding contract, Tara, I said, my voice as cold and flat as the tabletop. A co-signed bank guarantee, however, is... I tapped the pile of papers, now sitting in a puddle from the condensation of her untouched water glass. I will not pay the $39,000, but my offer stands. I pushed the boundaries letter back toward her. I will pay for the 5-hour commercial bankruptcy consultation, and I will pay for the Small Business Administration training course. You can choose to learn from this, or you can choose to default. The choice is yours. I am not bankrupt, Tara shrieked. She stood up so fast her chair screeched backward, scraping the floor. The entire coffee shop turned to look. Then take the class, I said, not moving, my voice still quiet. My father finally spoke, shaking his head, looking down at the table. Family. After all this, families should stick together. It was too much for Tara. The loss of control, the public humiliation, the utter failure of every tactic that had ever worked on me before. In one fast, desperate, reptilian movement, she lunged. She wasn't lunging at me. She was lunging for my wallet, which I had set on the table next to my portfolio. She was lunging for the card. Just give it to me, she hissed, her face contorted, her fingers brushing the leather. Just let me borrow it. One time I'll pay it back. My reflexes, honed by years of clinical precision, were faster. My hand snapped down, covering my wallet, pulling it out of her reach before her fingers could close on it. I didn't yell. I didn't gasp. I didn't even lean back. I just looked at her. My eyes were ice. She froze, her hands still clawed in the air, suspended over the table. Her chest was heaving. The entire cafe was silent. My mother's fake sobbing had stopped, her mouth open in genuine, horrified shock. My father stared, speechless. Tara had finally done it, in front of a dozen strangers. She had stopped pretending she was asking for help. She had stopped trying to guilt me. She had tried to take it. The air crackled. She had just signed, in broad daylight, the full confession of her own desperate, bottomless greed. And I, and the woman in the corner, had seen everything. Tara's hand hung in the air for a long second, a grotesque monument to her own desperation. Then, with a sound of pure, animalistic fury, a low snarl in the back of her throat, she snatched her hand back. She grabbed her purse from the floor. You will regret this, she seethed, each word a separate, venomous dart. She shoved past the barista, who was frozen in place, and slammed her way out of the coffee shop. The bell above the door jangling in frantic protest. My father, his face pale and slack, stumbled up from his chair. He looked at me, then at my mother, then at the floor. He said nothing. He just turned and shuffled out after his eldest daughter. My mother was the only one left. She was sitting in a puddle of her own spilled latte, her fake sobs having turned into real, racking shudders of shock. She looked at the half-empty cafe, at the staring strangers, and then at me. Her face was a ruin. "Harper," she whispered. She just... "Go, Mom," I said. My voice was not unkind. It was just empty. I was done. "Go be with your family." She flinched as if I had struck her. She gathered her things, her hands trembling, and hurried out of the door. I sat there alone at the table, surrounded by their abandoned drinks and the wreckage of the meeting. From the corner booth, I heard the rustle of a newspaper closing. Evelyn March stood up. She walked over to my table, her movements calm and unhurried. She placed a folded $20 bill on the table for the barista. She did not look at me. She just adjusted her cardigan. "The meeting is adjourned," she said, her voice quiet but carrying. "The opposing counsel has shown their hand, a very poor hand, at that." She looked at me, her gray eyes clear. "You held the line. Harper, well done. Now, the real war begins. Go home. Get some rest. They will not." She left. I sat for another 5 minutes. I drank my coffee, which had gone cold. Then I stood up, left my black portfolio on the table, and walked out into the bright, indifferent Austin afternoon. I was wrong. The war had already begun. The meeting in the cafe was just the first battle. Tara's frontal assault had failed, so she immediately pivoted to insurgency. That night, the attacks came from 3 different directions, a coordinated, multi-front campaign of desperation. The first front was financial. At 9 p.m., an email landed in my inbox. It was not from Tara. It was from a man I'd never heard of, at a generic ATX Realty email address. Subject: quick cash offer on your condo. Ms. Rivera, a mutual friend, Tara Rivera, mentioned you might be in a distressed situation and looking for a quick, all-cash liquidation of your new property. My investors are prepared to make you a fast offer, closing in 7 days, to help you with your financial difficulties. We can take it off your hands, no questions asked, no inspections. Let me know if you are interested in our offer. Distressed situation, financial difficulties, liquidation. Tara was framing me as the one in trouble, the one needing a quick deal. She had sicked a vulture on me. She was trying to panic me, to surround me, to make me feel as desperate as she was. The old Harper would have been terrified, confused. The new Harper was just cold. I didn't reply. I forwarded the email to a new address. Miles, during our long talk about the Austin market, had mentioned the name of his own real estate broker, a woman he described as a shark who only eats other sharks. I forwarded the email to her with one line: "Hi, I'm a colleague of Miles Carter. Can you give me a professional opinion on this unsolicited offer?" Her reply came back in less than 15 minutes. "Harper, glad to meet you. This ATX Realty is a shell company for a bottom-feeder investment group. They pull this nonsense all the time. The offer they're implying, based on this building's comps, is a lowball. They're trying to scalp you for at least a 12% discount below market value. Tell them to get lost. Or better yet, don't reply at all. Happy to help. Jenna." I saved the email chain as a PDF. Exhibit C, attempted asset interference. The second front opened 20 minutes later. It was emotional. A notification on my phone. A new voice message. It was from my father. His voice was thick, watery, and full of that familiar wheedling tone of male helplessness. "Harper, honey, your mother. She's just a wreck. She won't stop crying. I've never seen her like this. What you did today. You humiliated her. You humiliated all of us. A pause, a heavy, wet sigh. This is not how we raised you. And that young man, Miles, he seems like a good man, a man with money. You don't need all this, honey. You don't need this big fancy place. You should just sell it. A man will take care of you. That's how it's supposed to be. Just call your mother. Please. Harper, fix this. I listened to the message once. I did not get angry. I did not cry. I did not feel a single thing except the cold click of a lock falling into place. I pressed save. I exported the audio file. I labeled it Exhibit D, Paternal Coercion. I did not reply. I was no longer under any obligation to explain my life to a man who believed my only purpose was to be taken care of. The third front was public. This one was Tara's specialty. My phone began to buzz with Instagram direct messages. Not from Tara, she had clearly blocked me after the cafe, but from my extended family, an aunt in Florida, a cousin in Chicago, another cousin I hadn't seen since I was 12. Harper, what is wrong with you? I cannot believe you would abandon your family like this. Your mother is sick with worry. Money has made you a cold, hard person. I was confused for a moment. Then I understood. I went to my cousin's profile. She was following Tara. I found Tara's latest Instagram story. It was not a picture. It was just a black screen, with small white text typed in that cursive font people use when they want to be dramatic. I've learned a very hard lesson today about who your real family is. Sitting in a hotel room crying with my parents. Some people get a little bit of success in a fancy apartment, and they forget who held the ladder for them. Some people would literally rather watch their own parents become homeless than be inconvenienced. It's a sickness. Please pray for us. It was vague, plausibly deniable, and utterly devastating. She had launched the smear campaign. She was painting me as a monster to the entire extended family, positioning herself as the loyal daughter watching her parents suffer at the hands of their ungrateful, wealthy snake of a youngest child. My hands shook. Just once. This was the attack that hit, the public shaming. I called Miles. He picked up on the second ring. Harper, what's up? Are you okay? You sound... She's lit me on fire, I whispered. She posted on social media. She's telling everyone I'm letting my parents become homeless. The whole family is messaging me. I don't know what to do. Right, he said. His voice was suddenly all business. The easygoing dog park guy gone, replaced by the CEO. Okay, first, you do not respond to anyone. Second, I have a friend who runs a digital reputation firm. He's a wizard at this. He can help you craft a statement, and my lawyer can draft a cease and desist for libel. Just say the word. Harper, we can shut this down, legally and publicly, by morning. The offer was a life raft. I could just grab it. I could let him, a capable, strong man, fight this for me. I closed my eyes. I thought of my father's voice note. A man will take care of you. No, I said. My voice was shaking, but it was firm. No, he asked, surprised. Thank you, Miles. Thank you for offering. But no, this isn't a PR problem. This is a family pathology. If I send in lawyers, I'm just proving Tara's point that I'm a cold, hard person who uses money and power. I have to do this myself. This is part of my new job. He was silent for a beat. You are one hell of a person, Harper Rivera. Okay. You do it your way. But the offer stands. My phone is on all night. I hung up. My resolve hardened. I was not going to be saved. I was going to be the specialist. I opened my DMs. I looked at the angry, confused messages from my relatives. I took a deep breath and drafted a reply. Hi, Aunt Cousin. I'm very sorry to hear you've received incomplete and one-sided information regarding a private family financial matter. This is a complex situation involving multiple parties and legal documents, and I am handling it with the discretion it deserves. I wish you a good day. I hit copy. To my aunt in Florida, paste. Send. To my cousin in Chicago, paste. Send. To the cousin from 12 years ago, paste. Send. It was a template. It was cold. It was corporate. It was an unbreachable wall of professional courtesy. It gave them nothing to argue with. It confirmed nothing. It denied nothing. It simply dismissed them. And then, a new text message pinged, a private one, from my mother. Harper, I'm truly sorry. What you saw today, what Tara did, it was wrong. I was wrong. I'm so ashamed. I don't know how I let it get like this. I'm sorry. I stared at the message. It was the first honest, non-performative communication she had sent me in a decade. There was no request, no guilt, just an apology, a real one. This was the most dangerous attack of all, because it wasn't an attack. It was a white flag. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. I wanted to forgive her. I wanted to fall back into the good daughter role. I typed back a single sentence. I hear you, Mom. I need time. I didn't offer forgiveness. I didn't absolve her. I just acknowledged her. And I held my boundary. I went to bed, exhausted but clear. The three-front war had been met. I had defended my assets, my reputation, and my emotions. I woke up the next morning, Sunday, to the final, most insane gambit. An email from Tara. The subject line was loan repayment schedule. I opened it. The tone was breezy, professional, and utterly psychotic. Hi, Harper. Following up on our productive meeting yesterday, I really appreciate you agreeing to help us out of this jam. I've drawn up a proposed repayment plan for the $39,000 temporary loan. As discussed, I will make payments of $500 on the first of every month until the principal is paid. This demonstrates my commitment and good faith. Thanks again. Sis, you're a lifesaver. Tara. My blood ran so cold it turned to ice. She was gaslighting me. She was creating a false paper trail. She was pretending my no was a yes, that her lunge at my wallet was a productive meeting, that her humiliation was a discussion. She was trying to legally manufacture my consent. I hit reply. I CC'd my mother and my father. My fingers were like pistons. Tara. To be unequivocally clear, I did not, and do not, agree to this loan. There is no $39,000 loan. The premise of your email is false. I reject this plan in its entirety. I consider this attempt to manufacture a false agreement to be an act of bad faith. My original final offer stands a 5-hour consultation with a bankruptcy professional and an online accounting course. That offer is now valid for the next 24 hours only. Do not contact me about this loan again. I hit send so hard my finger hurt. Her response was instantaneous. The professional mask was gone. The raw, emotional blackmail was back. The boys are crying. Harper. They keep asking for their Aunt Harper. They don't understand why you won't see them. They don't understand why you're being so mean and tearing the family apart. They just miss their aunt. Using the children, the final shield, the lowest, most desperate blow. I stared at the message. This was it. This was the end of the line. This circus of manipulation had to be burned to the ground. I picked up my phone. I texted the group chat, Mom, Dad, Tara. This is over. Today, we are going to settle this, in person, once and for all. This is the last meeting. We will establish the facts and sign the documents. I am putting an end to this. Tara, seeing a final chance at a negotiation, replied instantly, Fine. Where? Your apartment. Before I could answer, my phone rang. It was an unlisted number with a local Austin prefix. I answered. This is Harper Rivera. Harper. It was Evelyn March. Her voice was not warm. It was like chilled steel. I have been monitoring the correspondence. Your sister is attempting to create a fraudulent contract. We cannot allow this. I know, I said, my voice tight. I just summoned them for a final meeting, here, at my place. No, Evelyn said. The command was absolute. You do not meet them on your territory. You defended the castle. Now the final treaty will be signed on neutral ground. My ground. This time, I will not be in the corner. I will be at the head of the table. Where, I asked? March Community Bank, the downtown headquarters. It is Sunday, but my bank is open for me. I have reserved the main glass conference room on the executive floor. A bank, on a Sunday, a glass conference room. Tell them, Evelyn commanded. 10 a.m. And Harper. Yes. Bring your portfolio. Bring every screenshot, every email, and every voice memo. You are no longer a niece. You are a special prosecutor, and this is the hearing. I sent the text. March Community Bank, downtown, 10 a.m. Do not be late. Tara's reply was a single, confused question mark. My mother's was a simple. We will be there. At 9:45 a.m. on Sunday morning, I walked into the main lobby of the March Community Bank. It was a cathedral of marble and glass, utterly silent on a Sunday. The only person in the cavernous space was a uniformed security guard, a tall, imposing man who stood next to the executive elevator bank. I walked toward him, my black portfolio held firmly at my side. Harper Rivera, I'm here for a 10 a.m. meeting with Mrs. March. The guard, who looked like a former Secret Service agent, simply nodded. We've been expecting you, Ms. Rivera. He pressed a button, and the elevator doors slid open with a sound like a whisper. Executive floor. When my family arrived at 9:58, they looked small and out of place. They were dressed in their wrinkled hotel clothes, their faces puffy from stress and anger. They looked like what they were, people in a desperate financial situation, coming to beg. Tara, however, had rallied. Her makeup was applied like armor, and her eyes were bright with a combative, resentful energy. This was her last stand. The same security guard met them. Good morning. May I help you? We're here. For a meeting, my mother stammered, looking around, intimidated by the wealth and silence. With Harper Rivera, Tara said, her voice sharp. Where is she? Right this way, the guard said. He did not ask for their names. He led them to the elevator, and we all rode up in a heavy, toxic silence. The doors opened onto the executive floor. It was a space of muted grays, thick carpet, and floor-to-ceiling glass. The only sound was the faint hum of the building's climate control. At the end of the hall was a massive glass conference room, its walls offering a panoramic view of the Austin skyline. And at the head of a 20-foot polished mahogany table sat Evelyn March. She was not the old woman in the faded tote bag from the grocery store. She was not the kind, eccentric lady in the teal cardigan from the apartment. She was dressed in a dark, impeccably tailored charcoal gray suit. Her silver-white hair was swept back. She looked regal, powerful, and utterly in command. Next to her stood a young woman in a severe black suit, holding a stack of leather-bound folders. As we approached, the uniformed guard from the lobby moved to open the heavy glass door for us. As Evelyn looked up, he nodded respectfully. Good morning, Mrs. March, he said. Tara froze. Her head whipped from the guard to Evelyn. Mrs. March. Tara's voice was a confused squeak. She looked at Evelyn, the woman from the coffee shop, and then at the name etched in the glass wall, the March Foundation, Executive Suite. You know her. You work here. Evelyn. March did not smile. She gestured to the chairs on the opposite side of the table, as one would gesture to defendants entering a courtroom. Please, sit down. Her voice was not a request. It was an order. We all sat. I placed my black portfolio on the table in front of me. Tara, you asked if I work here, Evelyn began, her voice crisp and amplified by the room's acoustics. I am Evelyn March. I am the co-founder of the March Foundation, and I remain a majority shareholder in this bank. Tara's face went from confused to chalk white. My father sank lower in his chair, as if trying to disappear. My mother just stared, her hands flat on the table, her mind clearly unable to process this new, terrifying variable. I have called this meeting, Evelyn continued. Because a formal financial request was made of my associate, Ms. Rivera, and a subsequent attempt to manufacture a fraudulent loan agreement was then submitted via email. The young woman in the suit moved with silent efficiency. She placed a leather-bound folder in front of my mother, my father, and Tara. She placed a final one in front of me. I do not like fraud, Evelyn stated, her voice dropping, cold as the marble in the lobby. So I have taken the liberty of compiling a full data review of the situation. Tara's hands trembled as she opened the folder. The first page was titled, Family Contact Ledger H. Rivera, 2-year review. It was a spreadsheet, a cold, clinical, data-driven log. My mother gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. It was my life, quantified. Column A date, column B. Initiated by, column C. Subject, column D, resolution. It logged every call from me to them, followed by voicemail, no reply. It logged every text from them to me, the subject line reading, request babysit, request pick up groceries, request drive Tara to airport. It logged every single time I had sent a text about my work, my promotions, my life, and the corresponding response time, which was, in almost every case, NA or no reply. It was 2 years of my invisibility, printed in 9-point font. It was the data log of a user, not a daughter. What is this? My mother whispered, her voice horrified. Where did you get this? I asked Harper to compile it, Evelyn said, her gaze fixed on my mother. I am an investor. I do not invest without seeing the historical data. The young woman, the secretary, stepped forward again. She placed a second, thicker folder in front of Tara. And this, Evelyn continued, is for you. Tara opened it. Boutique Tara LLC, Cash Flow Analysis, Liability Report. It was a full workup of her business. Her bank guarantee was on the first page, but behind it were her supplier invoices, her state tax filings, which were late, and a damning cash flow chart that showed her sold-out inventory was, in fact, a catastrophic ordering error. She had no cash reserves. She had massive, unlisted debt to her clothing vendors. The $39,000 was not the only fire. It was just the one closest to the house. How? Tara was hyperventilating, flipping through the pages. How did you get this? This is private. This is illegal. It is all publicly available information, Ms. Rivera, the secretary said, speaking for the first time. Her voice was like a razor. We ran a standard commercial credit check. Your business is functionally insolvent. Evelyn March leaned forward. I was in that grocery store in Grand Rapids. Ms. Rivera, I saw Harper, a woman with a brilliant career who I had been tracking for years, counting pennies to buy milk. I saw her choose to pay her way with her own dignity, so I made her an offer. I wanted to see if her family, given the chance, would also choose to act with dignity. She gusted to the pile of folders. You did not. Evelyn slid 2 documents into the center of the table. This is Document A. It is a formal, one-time offer from the March Foundation's Educational Fund. It is a $15,000 grant. It will cover the bankruptcy consultation, the accounting classes, and a full retainer for a commercial debt strategist to restructure your failing business. She then slid a second, single sheet of paper next to it. And this is Document B. It is a conditional gift agreement. The value is $0. It is triggered by what my legal team calls the no-guilt coercion clause. It states that any attempt to secure funds through emotional violence, public shaming, or physical intimidation voids all offers of support, now and in the future. Tara just stared at her. What are you talking about, physical intimidation? Evelyn nodded to her secretary. The young woman touched a remote control, a large flat-screen monitor, previously hidden in the wall, descended with a quiet hum. The screen lit up. It was a high-resolution, full-color image. It was a still frame from the security camera at Cedar Steam, taken from above. It showed our table. It showed my mother, mouth open. It showed me. my hand defensively covering my wallet, and it showed Tara, leaning halfway across the table, her face a mask of rage, her hand clawed, frozen in the air, an inch from my property. The secretary pressed pause, and the image held. My mother made a sound, a choked, strangled sob. Oh, God. My father put his head in his hands, rubbing his forehead, his whole body shaking. Tara's face was bright, burning red. That was a joke. We were arguing. It was a family argument. It was a joke. Does that look like a joke to you, Mr. Rivera? Evelyn asked, her voice quiet, directed at my father. My father didn't look up. He just shook his head. The card you were reaching for, Evelyn said, her voice turning to ice, was a Linden Mutual Trust card. It belongs to the Aurora Boundary Program. It is a tool I provide to certain investments. Every time that card is used in a situation of emotional duress, such as paying for coffee at a meeting where you are being emotionally blackmailed, it logs the transaction as coercive. It creates a legal, time-stamped record of the abuse. When you lunged for that card, Tara, you were not just lunging for money, you were lunging at the very boundary I had paid to erect. The room was utterly silent. The only sound was the clicking of the secretary's pen, and then, the final, devastating reveal. Evelyn March looked at my mother. Her expression, for the first time, was not one of a banker. It was something far older, far more painful. I knew you were in Grand Rapids, Catherine, Evelyn said, using my mother's first name, the name I had never once heard spoken. My mother's head snapped up, her eyes wide with terror and a sudden, dawning, impossible recognition. What did you call me? I called you Catherine. It's the name your mother, my sister, gave you before she died, before your aunt, unable to care for you herself, gave you up for adoption. My mother stopped breathing. I stared at Evelyn, then at my mother. The world tilted. My sister, my mother whispered. My younger sister, Aurora. Evelyn said. She died just after you were born. I was in college. I couldn't find you for years. By the time I did, you had been adopted by a good family. You had a new name. You were happy. I was advised to let you be, so I did. I watched from a distance. The silence in the room was absolute. Which makes me, Evelyn said, her gaze turning to me, her eyes, for the first time, softening with a profound, aching sorrow. Your grandmother, Harper, my portfolio, my printouts, my screenshots, they all meant nothing. I had a grandmother, I whispered. I didn't know. My mother was sobbing, her hands shaking so hard she clutched the table. I didn't know. I swear to God. I didn't know. I know you didn't, Evelyn said, her voice hard again, the sorrow vanishing, replaced by judgment. And that is the point. I have been watching my granddaughter's life for 30 years. I saw her excel. I saw her brilliance. And I saw her family, the only family she knew, treat her like an unpaid servant. I waited, Catherine. I waited for you to see her. I waited for you to treat her with kindness before you knew she was my heir. I waited for you to be her mother, but you failed. All of you failed. The secretary stepped forward a final time. She placed one last document in front of me. This, Evelyn said, is the Aurora Trust. It is named for my sister. Your grandmother, it is yours. Harper, it is fully funded. It guarantees your housing, your education, your health care, and your future. It is ironclad, and it contains a clause, written by me, which expressly forbids the use of one single penny to rescue other capable adults from the consequences of their poor financial choices. Tara made an involuntary choking sound. This is unfair. She gets everything and we get nothing. You get nothing, Evelyn repeated, her voice incredulous. I offered you $15,000 in education and expert consultation to save your business, but that's not what you want. Is it? You don't want help. You want a handout. This is not about fairness, Tara. This is about character arithmetic. Those who respect boundaries see their assets grow. Those who abuse them see their assets reduced to zero. Tara looked like she was going to be sick. My mother looked past the documents, past the money, past Tara. She looked at Evelyn, her eyes red-rimmed and raw with a lifetime of unknown loss, and then she looked at me. Her tears were no longer a performance. They were a deluge. "Harper," she choked out. My baby. Oh, God. Can I have a chance? A chance to learn? To be your mother?" I said nothing. I couldn't speak. I was staring at the final clause of the Aurora Trust, the one my new grandmother had just given me. It was the discretionary clause. It stated that all terms were binding, with one exception: the beneficiary, H. Rivera, held the sole and absolute power to amend the terms of contact and communication with her biological extended family. The choice, after all this, was still mine. The glass walls of the conference room were perfect mirrors. Against the bright backdrop of the Austin skyline, I saw the four of us reflected: a fractured, broken portrait, my mother, Catherine, her face stripped bare, her eyes hollowed out with a grief so profound it seemed to age her a decade in an hour. She was, finally, genuinely remorseful. My father, his head bowed, his hands covering his face, a man so completely exhausted by his own passivity that he had imploded, leaving just a shell. Tara. Her face was pale, her knuckles white, but her eyes were not defeated. They were sharp, dark, and calculating. Darting from Evelyn to the documents, to me. She was still processing. She was still looking for a loophole, an angle, a weapon. And then there was my reflection. Me. I was just clear. The fog of guilt, the static of obligation, the 30-year-old ache of being invisible, it was all gone. I was just Harper. My shoulders were back. My gaze was steady. I was finally here. Evelyn March sat at the head of the table like a monarch. Her gaze was fixed on me, not my family. She picked up a heavy black fountain pen from the desk blotter in front of her. It looked old, a pen that had signed treaties and founded companies. She did not hand it to me. She slid it, slowly, across the polished mahogany. The pen glided on the wood with a soft, expensive shush that seemed to absorb all the sound in the room. "You choose, Harper," she said. Her voice was not a suggestion. It was the final transfer of power. I picked up the pen. It was cool and weighted, perfectly balanced. I was no longer the daughter. I was no longer the rescuer or the resource. I was the administrator. I looked at my mother. Her eyes met mine, and they were terrified, pleading, and for the first time, honest. I took document A from the stack, the $15,000 offer for counseling and education. I pushed it across the table to her. "This is for you," I said, my voice so steady it surprised even me. She looked at the paper, her hands shaking too much to touch it. "I will authorize this," I said, "on two conditions. You must agree to attend family therapy with me, and you must complete a workshop on building healthy boundaries. This fund will pay for all of it. If you sign this, I will sign it, too." Tears streamed down her face, but this time they were quiet. She nodded, a spastic, desperate movement. "Yes, okay, yes." Then I turned to Tara. Her eyes were like black ice. I took the second stack of papers, the Small Business Administration course enrollment, the contact information for the commercial debt consultant, the 8-week online accounting program. I slid the entire stack across the table to her. "This is for you," I said. "This is my final offer: expert help, professional tools, education, the resources to fix your own choices." I tapped the paper. "There is no cash. There will be no bailout. This is it." Tara looked at the papers as if I had slid her a pile of garbage. My father finally lifted his head, his voice a dry rasp. "But the house. Harper. Our home. What about our home? I met his gaze. The well of pity I had always felt for him was dry. I've already addressed that. I reached into my own portfolio, the one I had prepared. I pulled out the pamphlet from the Housing Trust of Texas. I slid it to him. This is a directory of independent debt counselors and financial aid programs for senior citizens. You have options. You are not alone. Dad, you have just been refusing to use anyone but me. That was the last straw. The final, absolute denial of the money. Tara. Seeing her $39,000 prize, her last-ditch effort, her entire life of entitlement, vanish, finally detonated. She shot up from her chair, her palms slamming down on the mahogany table. The sound was like a gunshot, echoing off the glass walls. "No!" she screamed, her voice cracking with a lifetime of pent-up, unchallenged rage. "No, you can't do this. This is a joke. If you loved this family, if you had one single drop of loyalty or love, you would stop this performance. You would write the check and you would save us. You have the money, we know you do. You just have to pay." I didn't argue. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't flinch. I just looked at her. This screaming, unraveling woman, slowly, deliberately. I pushed my own chair back. I stood up. My family stared at me, their breath held. The secretary in the corner, anticipating, touched her headset. "Yes, Ms. Rivera. The notary is on his way." I reached into my wallet. Tara's eyes, hot and hateful, snapped to the movement, fixed on the gold card. I turned to the secretary. "Please charge this card for the reservation of this conference room, the notary's fees, and all associated administrative costs for this meeting." "Of course, Ms. Rivera," she said, taking the card without a flicker of expression. I turned back to Tara. My voice was low, clear, and utterly final. "I do love this family, Tara. I love it so much that I am the only one who has been willing to do the hard work. I am the only one willing to stop the sickness that has been poisoning us for 30 years. I took a breath. "It stops. Here. Today." "You..." Tara was shaking, incoherent with rage. She snatched her phone from the table, her thumb mashing the screen. "I will tell them. I will tell everyone. I will post all of it. I will tell the whole world what you are, what you've let happen to your own parents. You're a monster." A sound, a small, sharp tap-tap. We all turned. Evelyn March, my grandmother, was tapping one long, elegant fingernail on the glass wall beside her. The sound was tiny, but in the silence, it was a hammer. "Please do," Evelyn said. Her voice was quiet, almost a purr, and it was the most dangerous sound I had ever heard. "Post it, Tara. Post your story, because the moment your finger hits that screen, you will be providing public, undeniable, time-stamped proof that you are attempting to shame and coerce a beneficiary of the Aurora Trust. You will be activating, in real time, the $0 clause. Not only will this $15,000 offer be voided, but you will be legally and permanently barred from any future contact or support of any kind from this trust or from Ms. Rivera for the rest of your life." Evelyn leaned forward, her eyes glittering. "Go ahead, dear. Post. Confirm, in writing, your own total disinheritance." Tara's hand was frozen over her phone. Her thumb trembled. She looked from Evelyn's terrible, placid smile to her phone, to the documents, to me. She was in a cage, and she had just realized every wall was electrified. The silence in the room stretched, thick and suffocating. The only sound was the low, high-pitched of the climate control, a sound like a single, sustained, screaming nerve. My mother moved first. Her hand, shaking so violently she could barely aim, reached for the pen. She pulled the counseling agreement toward her. With a desperate, choking sob, she scrawled her name on the signature line. She accepted the therapy. She accepted the terms. She chose to learn. My father. his face still in his hands, just nodded. A silent, broken assent. Tara did not move. She did not sign. She just stood, vibrating with a hatred that had nowhere to go. Her lips pressed into a thin, white, bloodless line of total defeat. The secretary returned, placing the heavy, leather-bound Aurora Trust document in front of me, along with the receipt from the gold card. I sat down. I picked up the fountain pen. I turned to the last page of the trust, and in a firm, clear hand, I signed my name, Harper Rivera. I had accepted. The secretary then placed another slip in front of me. The first scheduled withdrawal from the trust, Ms. Rivera, as you requested. I had already authorized it. My first act as the beneficiary, I pushed the slip onto the table for them to see. Item, Personal Therapeutic Services Fund. Item, 6-week professional self-care sabbatical. I looked at my grandmother. I'm choosing not to buy peace with money. I said, I'm buying it with rules. Tara couldn't stand it. She grabbed her purse, her face a terrible mask of bitter, impotent fury. She shoved her chair back, walked to the heavy glass door, and pulled it open. She stopped in the doorway and looked back. Not at our mother, not at our father, but at me. You will regret this, Harper, she hissed. One day, you will be all alone in your glass tower, and you will be miserable. You will regret this. She was gone. The door hissed shut, sealing the room. I picked up the small, itemized receipt for the room fee, the one the secretary had just handed me. I placed it in the center of the table, right where Tara had been sitting. This receipt is the witness, I said, my voice low, speaking to my parents. From now on, every transaction between us will be clean. There will be no more hidden fees, no more emotional blackmail, no more guilt tax. Evelyn March stood. She walked around the table, her shoes making no sound on the thick carpet, and came to my side. She placed her hand on my shoulder. It was light, but it felt like an anchor. Finally, she said, her voice filled with a quiet, profound pride. You paid with your own voice. She nodded toward the door. I stood. I picked up my portfolio. I did not look back at my mother or my father, who were just beginning to pick up the pieces of the life they had broken. I walked past them, toward the glass door. The uniformed guard opened it for me. I stepped out of the cold, quiet conference room and into the bright, silent hallway. At the far end, the floor-to-ceiling window overlooked the city. The full, undiluted Austin sun streamed in, striking my face. It was so bright it was almost painful, but it was warm. I felt it on my skin, and for the first time in my life, I felt completely, utterly clean. I walked toward the elevator, the light on my face. I did not turn around. I left them behind me, in that silent glass room, with the 2 sets of documents, and the only 2 choices they had left: learn or lose. The elevator doors opened. I stepped in. As the doors slid shut, the final click of the lock was a precise, clean, mechanical sound. It was not the sound of blood being severed. It was the sound of a contract, a 30-year contract of guilt being finally and fully terminated. Thank you so much for listening to this story. We would love to know what you think. Comment below and let us know where you are listening from, so we can connect. Please subscribe to Maya Revenge Stories, like this video, and give it an extra boost by hitting the hype button so more people can hear it.